Have you ever thought to yourself, why is my business stuck? Is it employees? I got employee problems. Is it systems? I got systems problems. Is it bad relationships? Is it bad communication? All of those things can impact your business. But tonight we're talking about the single thing that we found after coaching and training over 3,000 business owners of all different sizes, from startups to 9-figure companies doing 100, 200 million plus. What we found is consistently the single thing that is a guaranteed indicator that a business will fail, or at the very best scenario, stay stuck, which is just failing slow. So we're going to dive into that tonight. So if you're live on Facebook, drop a comment, let us know where you're watching from. If you're live on YouTube, subscribe, like this video, and drop a comment, let us know where you're tuning in from. So we're going to dive in. Typically, when we jump into these, when we decide on the topic for the episodes, it comes out of the work we're actually doing with clients in real time. So we don't just sit and make things up. We talk about and ask what's going on with clients. What are the struggles? What are the challenges? Because that's the real stuff that you guys are going through as business owners. And regardless of your size, you have challenges. And there's so many videos out there and gurus and thought leaders or wannabe thought leaders that are saying this is the one thing you need, and it's always some marketing tactic, or it's a sales process, or it's an SOP, or it's a spreadsheet. Well, I can guarantee you, no single marketing tactic, no single sales process, no spreadsheet is the one thing that your business needs. Your business needs a lot of things, but when you look at a business, and we talked about this really the last 3 weeks, everything comes down to relationships. You can trace every problem in your business down to relationships. Now we're going to go a level deeper into what in the relationship is the root of the problem. So, to kind of recap, Heather and I did episode 3 weeks ago. We talked about the marriage relationship. If you're building a business with your significant other, these are challenges you'll face. Then it was myself, Kirk, and Tim talking about the family relationship. And then last week, all four of us again, talking about the inter-business relationships. And all of that coming down to you as a business owner not managing those relationships well. So let's take it a level deeper. What are some uncomfortable situations that we've seen business owners run into?
How deep do you want to go?
That's a broad brush to paint.
Let's go deep. Let's go to the nitty gritty stuff.
And how dysfunctional do you want to get?
Let's get ugly. Let's give them the real stuff.
Well, when you say that, I go to employee side. I can remember a construction company that we were working with. The owner did not want to have a very difficult conversation because he didn't want to know the truth. We had, through a series of calls, financial reviews, realized that there was a better than likely chance that his financial stakeholder was either really bad at his job or embezzling money or both. And over the series of conversations, it probably was about a 2-month runway of time that we had said, hey, this is what we're seeing in your QuickBooks. This is what we're hearing in your conversations. They're not making a whole lot of sense. Mm-hmm. You need to have a conversation. And again, it took about 2 months. But at about the 6-week mark, he had finally reached out to me proactively to say, I need to have the conversation. I don't know how. And we sat on a call for about an hour, hour and a half, and role-played through the disciplinary journey and the conversation that he was going to have. And to his credit, he followed through. He recorded it, and I was pretty proud of him. But ultimately, long story short, the guy was, in fact, really bad at his job, and he was, in fact, embezzling money.
Does that mean he's bad at his job or just lacks the ethics to do his
both,
job?
I would say it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
It's like that's like a silver
If he was good at his job, he wouldn't have gotten caught. He'd know how to hide it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was good enough at his job that he got away with it until someone who actually knew what was going on, asked the right questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's actually fairly common in that type of review. When an issue is revealed, it typically takes about 3 months before there's enough friction in the relationship that something's going to break. Yeah, something's going to break, whether it's the person who brought the accusation or whether it's the person actually going through with it.
But thinking through that, I mean, what was the true cost of having a hard conversation? I mean, it probably took close to $80,000 to have that conversation. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it was well into the six figures what he had gotten out of the business.
Yeah. Why do you guys think it takes so long? Because, there's a saying that success loves speed, and you don't want to make brash decisions, but you need to be decisive and make clear decisions. And we talked about before, I posted a video on Instagram where I talked about people have said that I'm decisive. And in reality, I know I'm not decisive. I just make decisions based on values. So I'm able to make decisions quickly because my values don't change. Why do those situations, like Tim, you said, typically 90 days, 3 months to really get to the point where the business owner feels enough friction and pain to make the decision? Why? Should it take that long? Does it need to?
I mean, it doesn't need to. Often it comes down to fear or lack of a curiosity of what if you're right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so on the fear side, it's what if you're wrong, and I insert an element of friction into the relationship that causes the person to think I don't trust them. And then on the other side, well, as the consultant, you're new. Maybe you're interpreting things wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe you're wrong. And so it's a two sides of the same coin, where it's the lack of curiosity and it's weighing the risks. At some point, there's enough turmoil in your thinking, what if they're right, that you have the conversation because you see enough of the connected dots.
Yeah.
That's why it takes so long.
I would also add that confidence comes into it. If I'm the best at X, if I'm the best at Y, and I'm the best at Z in my business, and you're asking me to have a big C, a big conversation, I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
Sales pitch, I've got that down. Proposal, I've been doing that for 20 years. Getting the thing done on a project side, I've got that. But having difficult conversations, I would venture to say that the majority of people, not just business owners, but people, lack the confidence and competence to feel that they can make that conversation valuable, or that they can do it well. Because when you don't feel you're in control of the conversation, you will shrink back from having it. Unless it's something where your back's against the wall and you have to have it or else. And unfortunately, I've seen that be the deciding factor on whether or not the conversation happens. More times than not, when my back's against the wall, I'm tired of this thing happening to me, then it takes effect. But even at that, I mean, I won't mention names, but it took them another 2 weeks to have the actual conversation after we had a very elaborate call, role play, like planned out his next steps. It still took him 2 weeks to pull the trigger on the conversation, knowing full well that it's costing him a good 4 to 5 figures every week.
Yeah.
I think there's a component of that, though. I think we'd agree, most human beings don't want to feel that discomfort because it doesn't feel good. You have the stress with it. There's potential guilt with it. There's just this added component of what's going to happen. 2, you're walking into a conversation that, although you may have the framework with it, you don't have the response that you're going to receive. And that person could take it one of 2 ways. You could be completely, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's kind of like them catering to you. Or you're going to get a response back that you didn't anticipate, and now your back is against the wall, and you're not sure how to respond to it. And so you are going to respond in 2 ways, either through insecurity, which could lead to increased emotion, which is already a bad conversation to begin with. Or you're going to get the downside where you're going to shrink back, and then they're going to take over the conversation, and now you're in a spot where you're no longer in control of your own business, the leadership, and even if the conversation resolves itself, there's still a tension now that you brought between you and that person to where your leadership has been undermined?
Yeah, I would say as a leader, you shouldn't be having the first conversation in the conversation. Mm-hmm. This should be the second or third time you've been through this conversation, whether it's in jest or in theory. You should know exactly the agenda that you've mapped out for that.
Yeah.
And there should be very little that takes you off track.
I think that's good, but Kirk tends to drop really good nuggets, and we don't catch them. So you said the first time you have the conversation, that difficult conversation, should not be in the first conversation.
Correct.
Like there should be multiple, because you're assessing, you're investigating, and you're less likely to make a brash decision. I know I have to check myself on that, because there are times when I think something's true, even if I know it is, I have to throttle back because my knee-jerk reaction is to just eliminate the problem very quickly. And in doing that, wisdom has taught me, and experience is stop, seek wise counsel, which in this case is usually these three. Even today, we had a difficult conversation just before going live. We had a meeting, difficult conversation about multiple client situations, how we wanted to handle it internally, and then to give the most value to clients, and where our values are in that. And at one point I said, you know what, I'll humble myself, I trust you guys. We weren't all in agreement or alignment, and I can veto, I can say, no, here's what we're doing, but what does that do to leadership?
Yeah,
that's not a good decision. So I said, you know what, this is the team that I put together because I trust them. Okay, let's go. I will trust you. And you even said it tonight. I don't trust that person, and you're talking to Tim, but I trust you. And I said something like the other week. Actually, it was Tim. It keeps coming to you. Tim's been making some calls that have been like a little bit of friction for the rest of us, but we trust Tim, and he hasn't led us astray yet in anything. So
yes.
Thanks for the qualifier. That means there's time.
And things, we can make decisions at different times, but Tim just takes his sip.
I wouldn't even.
I have no expectation of Tim leading us astray.
I wouldn't stop with this conversation just as a business owner. I would say if you're going to lead in any capacity of your life, this should be something that you're implementing. And I'll give you an example from this morning. My son came into the kitchen, is known that he's had a dirty uniform this whole week, and chose last night to wash said uniform for Blues Day today. He's in junior ROTC, and I don't even give my kids the warning anymore of a practice that we've had for almost 10 years of walk me through it. That's what we call it, walk me through it. I don't want my kids having difficult conversations for the first time with a teacher, a principal, or anybody like that. So I said, Cadet Jewel, and I went right into a role play, and he paused, and he said, Dad, are we role playing right now? Because I want to mimic what he's about to walk into with his sergeant. Because sergeant's going to look at him top to bottom and look at the creases or lack of creases in his uniform. And I don't want him to experience that for the first time in front of a group of his peers. I want him to kind of go in knowing this could potentially result in me running 2 miles today in my gym clothes.
And for clarification, he's talking about junior ROTC, not the actual Army, for anyone who was not clear on that.
We went over the reality that he's ironing his own uniforms once he's in the Army. And it's not going to be 2 miles. It's going to be a 50-pound ruck up a hill for probably 10.
Yeah. So all of this makes me think of one big thing, and this is the overarching theme and the number one reason businesses stay stuck, and why it has nothing to do with the economy. Because it's so easy to blame the economy, and there's a new administration in the White House, which I think probably most entrepreneurs are excited about and optimistic about, but you can blame the economy, you can blame all these other things. Ultimately, everything in your business, success or otherwise, comes down to you as a business owner. If you're successful, that's because of you. You should share that with your team and make it because of them, because truly it is. But it starts with you, it ends with you. We think of the end zone as that place of success in business. But you never get to the end zone if you never get out of the comfort zone. And that's what we're talking about. Being in the comfort zone. I don't want to have the difficult conversation. I don't want to look under, I don't want to look in that container that's been sitting in the back of my car under the seat for the past 3 weeks and see what's in there. I just want to toss it out. Speaking from experience. Any parent with kids knows. If I see a container, that's why we have containers with clear lids. If it looks funky, I just throw it away. I'm done. I can get a new one.
Container too.
The container too. I throw away the whole container. But that's we treat business that way, but you can't operate in business that way. If you have a situation, if you have financials, if you have a client where you know there's something ugly there, you can't just avoid it. If you do, you will get 3-4 months down the road into a situation where now you're forced out of your comfort zone, and it's a much more difficult, much more costly, much more negatively impactful situation. Yep. So choose to get out of the comfort zone so you can get to the end zone, whatever that goal is, and then choose to step out of your comfort zone, make it a practice, and not live in the comfort zone. Because think of it this way. Here's what I find. We always default. We will always, it's like you think of it like an elastic. You know, a lot of athletes when they're training, or even in martial arts, you're training for point fighting. You have you strap the elastic band to yourself, and then you're moving forwards and backwards because you're training with resistance. The whole point is you train outside of your comfort zone so that you're stronger when you need to get out and deal with those things. But you'll always get pulled back into your comfort zone. That's just where we default.
You're not stronger. You feel stronger.
Yes. Well, I disagree with that. I think you are actually stronger. I think mentally you're stronger. I think that's where the big gap is for, especially even from an athlete side or even a person side. Just like working out, if you go out and run a 2-mile today and you haven't done it before, you may not do it. But if you work up to it, you didn't necessarily, it didn't become, it's still difficult to do, but you got better and you got stronger and you got more, you had more.
But that's the process of working out. The process of working out with resistance bands is so that you're constantly telling your brain that when it's actually time to perform and I'm playing the game, practice was harder. This is easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's being proactive in getting out of your comfort zone rather than being reactive and constantly going from this fire to this fire versus this is the fire I'm planning for and I'm going to attack this one. I'm going to ignore this one.
But it's also giving yourself experience, to your point, in that, so that when it does truly happen, you're not shell-shocked by it. You have the tools in your tool belt now to either proactively sidestep it, or in the reaction time will be much faster, so that the effect of it will be less.
It's interesting. And I see some of the comments too. Kirk, Tyrone, who's a good friend in the Army, 80 pounds, 80-pound ruck.
he probably would know too. I'm sure that's happened to him at least once.
Oh, I remember when Tyrone went to
125 pounds. My son would be tilting down the hill.
I remember when he went to basic. He went to basic big and came back lean.
Yeah, he did.
No, but so get out of the comfort zone. So there are 4 key things we want to talk about within this idea of getting uncomfortable. That's the big idea. Get out of your comfort zone. Businesses don't grow in the comfort zone. They just don't. You have to get really good at being comfortable in the uncomfortable, which is kind of an oxymoron because you're never truly comfortable in it. You're just confident in it.
You have to tether to the tension.
Yeah.
The tether to the tension. That's good. Someone dropped that in the chat, so we can remember that one. You have to, Kirk, expound on that. You have to tether to the tension.
I think by nature you get out of things because they're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get comfortable, or better yet, get confident in your incompetence and being able to move into the things you're unsure of and tethered to the tension, meaning there's no fire without friction.
Yeah.
So if you want to get momentum, you have to start. In order to get momentum to speed, you have to continue. I
So
think the hardest thing about having difficult conversations is having the first difficult conversation. And sometimes that's the one between your ears.
I think most times it's the internal conversation that's the hardest.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah.
It's the build up. You beat yourself up more internally than you do actually just having the stupid conversation.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. You have those false expectations that are
Yeah.
in your head of here's all the things going to play on. It's always the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it ends up being a small little thing that you grow into.
Well, we're working with a client right now. He had to have a very difficult conversation. We went in, I went on site for an hour and a half talking to the whole leadership team about this issue that could potentially have been a compliance and really a bigger issue than it had to be.
Right.
Gave them clear guidance. We walked through the full conversation, jotted down the talking points, and we're not deviating from this. It was a hard conversation because you're talking about somebody's personal convictions. When I went back out to have the follow-up conversation, this leader essentially said, it was so well planned out that it went way better than I ever expected. And the individual that I was speaking to acknowledged that they were doing the thing that I needed them to change, and they were willing to change. He's like, I didn't think it was going to go that way. But I will say that the confidence came in the preparation. And if he would have untethered from the tension of that conversation, he would have bypassed and allowed this disruption in the culture for far longer than it needed to, when all this person needed was direction, correction, and move forward strategy.
That's a good thing to highlight. I love that you said it, because there's a perception of what outside of your comfort zone feels like, and then there's a reality of it. And 100% of the time, what you perceive the experience of getting outside the comfort zone is going to be like, it's never actually that difficult. Or sometimes it is more difficult than you anticipated, but you perform better in it than you would have expected because you prepared. So it's extremely important. And I'll say this too. There are 4 key things we're going to talk about as it relates to staying uncomfortable and versus staying in your comfort zone where nothing good happens. In your comfort zone, you get fat, you go broke, you break up, all these negative things happen. You get sick, you die, your business dies. Comfort zone is for vacation, not for doing business. And I'll put it this way. Show me someone who operates in business inside their comfort zone, doesn't have the difficult conversations, doesn't do the difficult things, and I will show you someone who does that exact thing all through their personal life. So I know, like Kirk, I've watched him over the years that we've worked together have difficult conversations very skillfully. Like I've learned, I've modeled after a lot of what I've seen Kirk do, eavesdropping on his calls. And it's no surprise to me, Kirk does those same things, those same practices. You talked about role playing with your son in his personal life. I mean, he celebrates his birthday by having like casting vision and setting goals. That like family, the family has lunch on Kirk's birthday and they celebrate by planning and setting goals. Tim has difficult conversations, and he has a way of having difficult conversations where I know it's coming. There's a certain look.
There's a build up.
There's
the hints of this is what we're going to talk about. This is why.
But it's not a hesitancy. It's a skillful. Okay, we're going to have a difficult conversation, and he actually has more tact sometimes than I do. We actually had a conversation about that today, because when I don't have a problem having difficult conversation. It's me softening it, because it gets to a point where I love you, but I'm going to give it to you straight the way that I like to receive it. But the way that I receive it is not how everyone else receives it. To me, it'll feel like love if you just give it to me straight. Yeah. To someone else, it feels like I stabbed you in the eye. So, but you've got to do that in your personal life. So this goes back to what we've been talking about all this month of February, relationships. If you as a business owner avoid the difficult conversations with your spouse, with your kids, with your in-laws around the holidays, you will guaranteed take that same behavior into your business. Now, the flip side of that is, and let's talk about this, there are some people who have no problem with difficult conversations, to the point that they don't have difficult conversations They create difficult conversations because they like the conflict.
Yeah.
They feed on the conflict. And that's a whole different thing. That's actually, they can often be perceived as someone who operates outside the comfort zone, but really for them, that is the comfort zone. Conflict is comfortable for them. Mm-hmm. So they create conflict where it doesn't exist, doesn't need to be.
There's another one of those. Addiction to affliction.
Addiction to affliction. We're making T-shirts and stickers. You guys can get these. They'll be on our website. They have an addiction to affliction. Yeah.
Because we've seen it on both sides. Whether you're the one that's perpetuating the tension and being the aggressor, or you're being the antagonist and then becoming the victim in your own conversation. So it's this propensity towards conflict, whether it's offensive or defensive.
Yeah.
If there is no angst in the air, there must be something wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything if I don't feel it.
That's a whole other side that we didn't plan to talk about. Some people get very uncomfortable when things are actually good. Mm-hmm. If for any of you watching that are fans of The Office, drop a what yeppers in the chat. If you're an Office fan, you know what that means. Where Michael Scott, he's the idiot boss. He doesn't want to have the difficult conversations, and so they're having a Christmas party. Someone else is planning the Christmas party, and normally it's chaos. But he walks in, and he's expecting chaos, so he says, "Hey, how's everything going?" One of the characters says, "Oh, fine. So-and-so got those sugar-free cookies that I like." And then he goes to the most difficult, confrontational person in the office, and she says, "No, seems like it'll be good." And you can see in his face, he's now uncomfortable, and here's why. Because when there's no chaos, he doesn't feel needed.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel important, and that's uncomfortable. So another area to get comfortable is be comfortable having a team that can function without you. And this is just the intro. We haven't even gotten into the 4 points yet, but there's a lot of good stuff.
Can we say why you want to be comfortable with being unneeded?
Because that's how you build a great team. You have to be willing to hire people smarter than you. I can pinpoint where Heather is smarter than me, where Tim is smarter than me, where Kirk is smarter than me. I know what I'm great at. I know what only I can do the way I can do it. And because I have that awareness, I also know where I'm not good. And that list of things are the things that I recruit and hire and delegate. Because I don't want a company that's limited to what I'm capable of. I'm just me. And so so many business owners, they build businesses where they never quite grow because they just want a bunch of yes men. The first person I will fire in this company is the person who always agrees with me and always says, "Yeah, I agree with that." So I hired 3 people, 2 in particular, who almost never agree with me, and then Kirk, who
I don't know what you're talking about.
Like I said, example A. But you've got to have people with different opinions, different experiences, because that keeps it in check, and that puts you in a place where, as a business owner, you're able to exponentially multiply everything from you. These guys for me and me for them and all of us together, we collectively amplify and magnify what we bring to the table because it's a diverse team. So we're able to have conversations that are much more productive, and I find it easier to get out of my comfort zone because my comfort zone is much more clear. It's okay, I'm gonna submit to you guys on this. I don't disagree with you. I don't like it, but that's why you're on the team, because I trust your insights and your experience, so I'll back off.
What I don't want to get mixed up is transfer of ownership is not abdication.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think a lot of times when you preemptively abdicate, or you think you're giving somebody else a role without ownership, without the accountability, without the discipline, you can't fully free yourself of that thing. So you have to transfer ownership of that task or role. Yeah. And a lot of times, especially early on, you're wearing multiple hats. Mm-hmm. And that first hire, the first really 3 to 5 hires are so pivotal that you don't transfer by abdication, but you truly do transfer ownership of a full role. And I think, AJ, you're a great example of this, where you're in fully marketing and fully leadership and fully sales, and now you're duplicating yourself into the next generation of sales. You're not saying, hey, here's everything, but here's one of the 3 hats I'm wearing. We're currently bringing him through, but ultimately, Zach will transfer into full ownership of that sales role.
Yeah, and that's what it has to be. That's uncomfortable for me because I have to put trust in another person. I put trust in you guys, but it's the awareness that that's the only way it happens. So there's always this balance between, just say it the way Kirk said it. I stay tethered to the tension. Do I feel tension? If it feels like an easy decision, it's either just a great moment of complete alignment, or we're not making the right decision and I'm avoiding something. So where's the tension? Because even we made a decision recently that's going to be a big shift for us as a company, and I felt really good about it, felt really at peace about it, but I felt tension. And there's tension when you're making a bad decision. Like you're about to jump out of a plane without a parachute. You should feel tension. A lot of tension. Something's wrong.
Let's see a death wish.
If that parachute says JanSport, stop.
Wrong decision.
Wrong decision. But if everything's set, there's out here in Arizona, we have Eloy, Arizona, one of the most active hot spots for skydiving. Incredibly safe because there's so much activity there, really experienced people. When I went skydiving, I felt a lot of tension, but I also knew the things are in place, and the tension I feel is because I'm just doing something that's really big, that's really scary, but I've taken the precautions to be safe.
Yeah.
So how do you know if you're making a good decision if you have tension if you're making a bad decision, and you have tension if you're making a good decision?
That's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
So answer it.
You don't.
I think what comes into play is really having
The results.
cornerstones in your house, if you will, of, okay, I'm not the best at this thing, but you've got experience there. Let me get experience through you, not because I'm just going to make a decision. And I think that requires, one, leadership of self, but then discernment of information. So I'm not making a decision absent of information. It may not be my experience, but I can leverage other people's experience to make an educated, calculated risk.
Yeah.
I think when you do that, I think to Tim's point, when you're saying bad decision or just maybe bad decisions isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't think. Because I always say for him, failure is not really failure if you learn something through the process. It just becomes a learning tool. So if you make a bad decision, I kind of believe that there are times where bad decisions build you up because it gives character to you, and it gives you lessons that you had to have learned or should have learned that you didn't learn along the way. So again, bad decision could actually be a good thing. And some people, a bad decision is what they need to be able to get to the next level, because maybe they're so overly confident in themselves that failing allows them to see, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am, so I need to actually go get quality experienced people around me to do better.
Yeah. On that point, Asha said, I feel this is where risk comes into play. And absolutely is. I wrote a note. There's accuracy versus precision.
Yeah. So
many business owners want to make decisions like a sniper. They want to have just pinpoint accuracy. But that's not real life. That's not real life. That's not real business. There will be moments when you hit that target. The first time I took my daughter to the shooting range, she was 17, and I showed her how to hold the pistol. It's just easy 9mm, and she took her first shot, and bullseye. The very first shot.
Walk away.
Yeah. And she was so excited.
We never have to practice again.
She was so excited, but here's the funny part.
The next one completely missed.
The next one was way off, but also she wasn't holding the gun correctly. She had her thumb in a weird position. My fault. Didn't see it. I was standing on the one side of her. But then as we went on, she had more shots, and they would miss, but the more that I corrected her, told her how to hold it, shift, and look down the sights, the more she went from inaccuracy to not accuracy, but precision, where her groupings were tighter. If you know anything about firearms in the range, you want groupings that are tight. So that's how business is. You've got to be willing to take the risk, make wrong decisions, and then you adjust. So, to Tim's point,
really like that analogy. It doesn't matter your accuracy; it matters
Yeah.
the grouping.
Yeah.
Because you can adjust your sights.
Yeah.
You can't adjust the grouping. The grouping is the muscle memory.
Yeah. Now, if you are, there are times when you have to be a sniper, but even snipers, they've put a lot of rounds down range. They've had a lot of time. And here's the thing: if you want to be a sniper, there are certain situations where you have to be. The calculations that go into that are extreme. There's a lot. I mean, if you know, I really like this stuff. Snipers, they take into account wind, direction, intensity. They take into account distance, bullet drop. They take into account the humidity, Coriolis effect, which is how much the Earth rotates when the bullet's in the air. You have to know these things. That's very different than I'm a police officer and I need to put, someone's coming at me. I just need to hit center mass. You just need a tight enough grouping. And so it's understanding what's the decision you're making. Tim asked the question, how do you know if the tension is a good decision or bad decision? And he said, I don't know if you heard it, you don't. It's about repetition, and some of it's pattern recognition. It's safeguards. Kirk talked about cornerstones. These guys are some of my safeguards. Other safeguards are our core values. My core values. If I'm not outside of my core values, if I'm not outside of our core values, if my team is in alignment, at least we're 50% alignment. Certain decisions, we have to be 75% in alignment. One of us can disagree, but if the three of us are on board, then that we're within the parameters to pull the trigger on that decision. And as long as we maintain that, if we're wrong, we don't lose. We learn the lesson and we can quickly make an adjustment. But again, using the same analogy, you have to make bad shots to identify where you're at, or to use the terminology, where's your zero? Or how off target are you? How inaccurate? And the more you do that, the more you recognize, last time I made this decision, I made it this way, and I was this far off target. I'm going to adjust in this way so I'm more accurate, and then you have more precision.
And every decision that you're making in tension has a stop loss. Where am I wrong?
Yeah.
And what am I doing because I'm wrong? That way, I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to wait 3 months to have that critical conversation. In the event it's not resolved in 3 months, I'm going to fire this guy.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to give him my hints that I'm not happy with the financial accuracy. And if it gets better, great, he has a job.
And stop loss is a trading term. Tim does a lot of trading. So there's your comfort zone, and then there's a safety zone. We'll put it that way. Your comfort zone is where you just lollipops and rainbows, unicorns poop, cotton candy. I feel good. I'm safe. Outside of that is your safety zone, where I can operate here. This place, I'm tethered to the tension, and this is the equivalent of I'm gonna go and I'm swimming with sharks, and I'm in the boat is comfort. I feel safe. In the cage, I don't feel.
We need to workshop these.
I like them on the spot because you guys get the good stuff. I'll workshop it later for an event. You're in the cage, you're in the water, you're protected by the cage. You're not in your comfort zone, but you're in the safe zone. Outside of that, just free swimming with sharks, now you're outside of the safety zone. Now you're in the danger zone, and that's where bad and stupid things happen. So you have to, unless you're trained. There's always an exception to the rule, unless you're extremely trained. Now, I grew up in the islands. I don't care how trained you are. You shouldn't be swimming out there. You're not going to swim with the great whites. You're just waiting to get eaten. It's just a matter of time.
If you don't swim with great whites, you don't have any Elon Musk.
Yeah, they yeah.
Just saying.
So, but yeah, you've got to know. Yeah, it's valuable advice. We appreciate that, and it came from a lot of bad decisions, bad mistakes that we've made, but also that we've seen clients make. I'm going to go through some of the comments here. Matt says, I like the understanding based on the decision made, how I'll know it was a good one or a bad one, so I know when it makes sense to course correct. Yeah, it's about learning when to course correct, and you start getting more confidence in your decisions. You start learning how you get honest, really, you get honest with yourself. Yep. I know I can recognize with myself when I'm not being honest with myself. And when I'm transparent with my team, with my wife, then they can recognize, how do you actually feel about that? I have to clue them into the signals, and this requires a lot of trust to them, in them, and also from them. They know, and I'm transparent. Hey, if you hear me say this thing, just you might want to ask me a question. I've given all three of them individually and collectively permission to call me out on certain things because I know I'm not perfect. I know I can make bad decisions, but again, it's setting those parameters so you have safeguards for your decisions. So with that, now we'll actually get into the 4 points. Okay, we got. But if you're trained, then it's still a safety zone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your safety zone is really defined and is predicated on how trained you are. So it's mitigating risk. What's risky for me when I run a marketing campaign is very different than someone who doesn't know how to do that. So always expand, but that requires, again, getting out of your comfort zone. So you keep expanding what the safety zone is, but you're also expanding your comfort zone. You get more comfortable in different situations.
Question, do you think that it makes a difference for those people, because there's people who are quick decision makers and those people who struggle with decision making. Is it the same criteria for someone who struggles with decision making?
It is. It's, I mean, in my opinion, it's a spectrum. Similar to if you're a friction-bound person, you need to be less friction-bound. And if you are a compliant person, you need to provide more friction so that you operate in the middle. Exact same thing when you're making speedy decisions. If you make decisions really, really fast, sometimes your better decisions are to slow down. But if you make really slow decisions, you need to speed up your decision-making process, and it's identifying where is the middle ground that has the best results for my business. If you have a 3-month business cycle, then you can take 3 weeks to make a decision. But if you have an e-commerce site where you're making a business cycle every single second or every single hour, then you need to make faster decisions when you're pivoting or when you're, again, when the scale of the decision has a major impact on your business. And so it depends, but it's trying to meet in the middle of what are you actually trying to accomplish.
To quote The Office again, for you fans of The Office, I have a picture on the wall that of The Office. So we're big Office fans. We talk in our family in Office quotes. Impulsivity and inattention to detail. Someone who struggles with decision making, either making making decisions too quickly or making them too slowly, impulsivity and inattention to detail. That's what it comes down to.
I think a lot of times it's navigating information. Like, I don't want to discredit. Close to 70% are very stabilizers, and then there's another almost 20% that are very analytical. Nothing's wrong with those things, but it's the speed at which you can navigate the information is completely up to the frequency that you've navigated the information.
Yeah.
The game will slow down the more you jump into the information that you're uncomfortable with. Like, it would take me hours to do what you do in 20 minutes because I'm unfamiliar with the information. The more I get ingrained and sit in on financial reportings every month, I'm getting faster with that information. I can make more educated decisions quicker because I know what the information is telling me. I know what the situation is telling me. I know what the data points that I'm taking on are telling me. If I only navigate these situations, circumstances, opportunities for decision making every 1 to 3 months, it's a new decision every 90 days. But if I put myself and take myself out of the comfort zone and put myself into uncomfortable situations or uncomfortable conversations or uncomfortable data sets, I will be able to navigate those a lot quicker, but with a lot more confidence.
Yeah, and we actually noticed that with our son because both of our kids they've struggled historically just to have conversations in general with people outside of our home. So we've actually started when we go to restaurants, we require them. You're going to order your own food and you're going to talk to the eyes of the person who's that. And I will say for our son, when he first did it, he couldn't look anybody in the eye. Now we actually went to dinner like Monday night. He walked in, table for 4, please.
I watched the hostess, and he was caught off guard. He was like, "Oh, okay, this kid's running stuff."
And he's 10, so I'm like, as a 10-year-old kid who went from not doing that, I would completely agree with you. If he's becoming more confident in decisions that he's making, and he's emboldened now to step out more.
Yeah.
So I think as a person who does struggle with that, as decision making or the over-analyzation that typically stabilizers and analyzers have, you do become more action oriented.
And I would argue from a psychological standpoint, he hasn't become more or less introverted or extroverted.
Yeah.
He's become more comfortable navigating outside of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
His natural state.
Yeah, and let's talk about this for a second, because this leads into a thought I had as you guys were talking. The comfort zone doesn't just apply to you as business owners. It applies to how you are training your employees, your team members, because I don't like the word employees, your team members, to operate outside of their comfort zone. So let's take the example of our son. It's been a very intentional practice of identifying, okay, where's his comfort zone, him and our daughter, and pushing them outside of that, while controlling their safety zone and creating that for them, so we're there.
Yeah.
You know, if you want your 5-year-old to learn to ride a bike, you don't put him on the bike and push him down a hill. I just had to.
You don't? That's how I learned.
That's how I learned too. But
You should have brought this up 2 days ago.
Yeah.
You want to put them on the bike and then push a little bit, be there to catch them before they fall. So with your team members, this goes back to the same thing. Use the same practice, but show me a business owner or CEO who doesn't effectively challenge their people and push them outside their comfort zone while giving them a safety zone, and I'll show you someone who does the same thing with their kids.
Yeah.
I can look at how you parent your kids, and it's a perfect reflection, and it will bleed over into how you operate with your employees, because it's very much a similar relationship.
But you also have to, as a leader, I won't just narrow it down to business owners, but as a leader, you have to create a safe environment to fail.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
And I will say that's getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And whether we're talking about your kids or your team members, my kids know that the stakes are low right now in their failure. I want them to fail a lot.
Yeah.
But I want them to do it with the coaching behind them. So when the stakes are high, when it goes from junior ROTC at high school to an actual drill sergeant in boot camp,
Right.
it's, oh, I've navigated this before. I know what this feels like. These feelings inside of me, they're not new. They're just bigger.
Yeah. I will say, a lot of business owners that we work with, I feel like there is a lot of tension with them that when there's a mistake, it's a deathly mistake, as opposed to, nope, it's a learning curve. And so their response is not one of, okay, it's not a big deal, let's course correct and we'll move along. It's a, why did you do that? How did this happen? What are you doing? You're an idiot. Yeah. Like, that's the response. Yeah. And so everyone's like tensioned up, and so the next time someone makes a mistake, I'm not going to say anything.
Well, that's the thing too with looking at parenting. How you talk to your kids is how you would talk to your employees. How you talk to all of them is a direct reflection of how you talk to yourself. So I've had to check myself because I'm very critical. I am very hard on myself. There's not a lot of room for error. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of patience. Like if I talk to our team members the way I talk to myself, it'd be an HR issue, and then I'd be talking to Kirk and we'd be having some tough conversations. But I've had to learn to have more grace with myself and allow myself the space. And this goes into a whole other conversation. If you're a CEO, you're a business owner, invest in therapy.
No.
Because you don't run the business as a CEO, you run it as a person. So if you as a person have brokenness, have wounds, you got to deal with that, because all of that, like your organization is going to be a reflection of your personality, and the people you recruit are going to be a reflection of your personality. Because you like attracts like. Yep. And so I have a great personality. I mean, look at this team. I have an amazing personality.
But I would say, though,
I don't always believe everything I say either.
Even as a business owner too, I think that if you've had, because your experiences turn you into the person that you are, if you failed a lot as a young kid, you can do one of two things. Either as you get older, it either requires you to put additional safety measures around people, too much so, to where they can't fail, or you get so hung up about your own failures that you're super critical, which is then you're going to beat somebody up. So you have to actually balance that of where is that point for them and each person that is that safety zone, and I'm just going a little bit further outside that. So I think even as parents, especially our generation, if we had it hard, like I know for me, I didn't have the best childhood growing up, so when our oldest was younger, I was a super helicopter parent. Definitely not anymore because we've learned the lesson about that. She's 20. She'll be fine, but she's still working some stuff
be
out.
fine.
She'll get over it.
Yeah.
We're investing in counseling.
Now we're doing round 2. So round 2 will always be better, but business owners will have to calibrate that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we're coming to the end of the show. We've talked through, really everything here. Employees, the uncomfortable things, some other uncomfortable things. If your business is struggling, injecting capital into your business, setting safeguards to make those decisions, real practical things, failed investments, failed campaigns. A perfect example, if you're at a place where you want to invest in marketing and you're thinking, well, what's the budget? Well, how do I make that decision? Look, the first agency you hire, 99% chance they're going to be the wrong one. And then the next one is going to be the wrong one. You're going to go through 2 or 3 before you really know what you're doing. Save yourself the trouble. Message us. Message me. I'll tell you what to ask. Save you that headache. But when you start launching marketing, I tell every client, whatever your monthly budget is, be willing to burn through that entire budget that first month with 0 results. Because in the same way that marketing works, life works, you're paying to buy data to help you zero in on your targeting. And it's the same thing with business. I guarantee everyone watching, if you're over 3-5 million, and for some of our clients who are just over $1 million, we've already gone through this process, your first offer, your first service offering isn't what it will be when you get to 3-5 million. It's going to change. Mm-hmm. We have a client that they started out as a quote-unquote web design company, and that's completely shifted. It's still a service they do, but the services have changed and evolved because you go through iterations and you realize, oh, this isn't really where we want to target. This isn't the client. And you have to be willing to have those iterations. But that makes a lot of business owners uncomfortable because then they feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
But I will say, getting away from the thing that we are took an uncomfortable set of conversations.
Yeah.
And it required an uncomfortable decision.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's working out really well.
Yeah, and that's the third point that we were going to talk about. The mindset shift, the number one mindset shift you have to make is that growth requires, doesn't just involve, it doesn't sometimes have, it requires pain. Every great breakthrough in your business is on the other side of a painful decision, experience, whatever that pain is, and you've got to be willing to go through that. When we talk to clients, and especially if it's financial, the first question Tim asks is,
even if it's not financial,
Well,
how much do you want to suffer? Do you want to suffer in a
tolerance?
month, or do you want to suffer for a quarter?
yeah, what's your
based
pain
off
tolerance?
of that?
Yeah,
How do you want to proceed?
Yeah. Everything
So-
you want is on the other side of hard.
Yep.
yeah. So I want to. Kirk's coming out with a line of bumper stickers for entrepreneurs. We're gonna do bumper stickers, refrigerator magnets. We'll do some temporary tattoos.
Make
So you
sure
guys have those.
Make sure we coin the phrase "embrace the suck."
Embrace the suck. Matt says, "Sign me up." Done. Yep, we call it stretching the rubber band. That's I think John
E-commerce.
Maxwell kind of
Yeah.
coined that phrase. So we'll leave you guys with this. This is what we're gonna call the hard action challenge for all of you watching and listening. And it's gonna be tough. Pick one uncomfortable move, decision, conversation that you need to execute this week. Now, with whatever you just thought of, that you then said, well, no, not actually that one. That first one you thought of is the one. Because you trained yourself to avoid it. It's kind of like you put a cupcake down, tell your dog, don't touch it. They look at it, and they look away, look at it, look away. That's what you're doing mentally. So whatever you thought of first, that is the thing that you need to do. Just decide you're going to go do it. Don't try to convince yourself. Stop talking to yourself. Just decide to do it. Example, there's someone you need to fire, and you've been hesitant to. You need to make an investment into coaching, into mentorship. This is not a pitch for All True. You want us to help you? We can. Somebody, you know who you need to go to, or you need to look into it, and you need to put up the money. We practice what we preach. I've done it many times personally. We've done it as a company, hiring outside consultants for specialty agencies, things like that. It may be you need to raise your prices. This is one that baffles me. Business owners don't want to raise prices because people might stop buying. They will, and that's kind of the point. More revenue, more profit, better service with fewer customers. so that you can expand and grow and provide better value. Spending money on marketing. I don't want to spend money on marketing. I just get lots of referrals. Well, you're going to be uncomfortable spending money on marketing, or you can be forced out of your comfort zone when those referrals dry up for whatever reason that you can't control. Inflation, economy, people stop spending. All of a sudden, you're not getting those referrals. You get one bad employee, and they hurt your reputation.
Somebody eliminates your entire industry in one decision.
Oh, yeah. And it's completely gone. Things like that have happened. So make the decision to do that difficult thing. Making the cold calls, building sales process. Suck it up and just do it.
Process is so much fun. You can do it.
Go for it. Do it. That's a beautiful thing about getting out of your comfort zone. It doesn't require a lot of thought. It just requires someone to say, "What's your comfort zone?" Immediately your brain thinks of it. That's the thing.
It requires courage, though, and that's that's unfortunately lacking in a lot of people, and that's hard to do. I will tell you, it's there's this psychological fear that you have with something that doesn't make any sense. And I will tell you, like early on when we first got married, I still am a little bit uncomfortable with it, but I'm better. I was deathly afraid of heights, deathly. Like I couldn't get up on a ladder or a step stool because I'm like, it's too far. When our kids were younger and they would go to the mall into that little they peer over from the second floor down to the first floor. In my mind, I will tell you, this is kind of probably weird and whatever, but my mind goes like the worst possible thing. I always thought that some random person in the mall would come over, pick them up, yep, Asha, and just throw them over. And so I was like, every single time they got within 5 feet, I'm like, don't go there. And AJ was like, what are you doing? I'm like, they might be hurt. They might get killed doing that. I have since gotten over that. I have gone up into higher stuff. I can now go onto ladders. I can actually go even onto roofs. Like, it doesn't bother me.
And she's going skydiving with me.
Not that, because I can't breathe. If I could breathe, I would go. I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, it's taken some intentional steps of I had to get on that ladder and I had to go 5 feet up and look down and just continue to look down and be uncomfortable with that. I probably will never be fully comfortable or confident with heights, but it's baby steps.
Yeah.
Little small adjustments affect big changes. So go do the difficult thing. Drop a comment if you're willing to do that, to accept that challenge, because if you want your business to grow, that's what you need to do. You need to make the hard decisions. You need to be uncomfortable. And if business is going great and you're like, I'm making all kinds of money, serving people, great employees, great people, awesome. Go look for the tension and use this great season as an opportunity to grow and create friction where you have more room for mistakes that are going to be less detrimental, and there's more of a positive environment that mistakes aren't going to be detrimental to your culture. This is a great time to do that. So we appreciate you guys. Love you all. Thanks for tuning in. And if you want to learn more about who we are as an organization, we help businesses scale, break through that 8-figure barrier. We've done it many times for our clients. Go down to the description if you're on YouTube, look at the description. You can attend this call. You can reach out to us, learn more at ultrapartners.com. And we love to serve you guys, love to help you scale your business without sacrificing your family, your health, or your sanity, so you can help people get rich and give generously. We'll see you on the next episode of Business Builders. Take care.
Peace and strength.